21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Why should people be interested in barrel strength leadership? I believe that investing in your people is the best way of spending your limited resources, because what you leave as generational leaders inside your organization or personally transcends business, personal relationships, and the battlefield. I spent 27 years in the Army. I believe that the military does a really good job of trying to train people for what their next job could be. Not just the job they're doing right now, but investing them in thinking processes, understanding, drills, whatever it may be, that will give them skills that are transferable to future leader positions. And that isn't really done in the business, the educational world. And that is something that, from the battlefield, critical decisions and leadership is compressed into a short time frame in a specific location that you can then start pulling it apart and use that as a framework to give to people so that they can use the thinking processes to solve problems. And if we can invest in people to do that, our organization will be better. Our business will be better on the back end. What I try to do is I try to highlight for individuals what are the types of mindsets, what are the type of things that you would like from your future leaders inside your organization, as well as on the personal side, you may or may not be impeding or not providing the structure that enables them to make the organization better. And so that's where I think the uniqueness of, one of the later questions, do leaders, are they able to see themselves? That's part of it. That's why going to there and not using necessarily a straight business case allows people to start looking at it maybe a little bit more objectively, and maybe realizing and asking questions about themselves. Am I doing that? Do I have that problem inside my organization? How can we solve it? I think about the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual batteries, fuel tanks, whatever you want to call it, right? And that when you're talking about things like resiliency, is resiliency something for yourself? Is it resiliency for your organization? Resiliency for your subordinates? You have to understand that. And sometimes even in battlefields, understanding the emotional stress over time, even though it may be only 3 days, you can then put them in and say, well, that might be the emotional stress or the physical stress of a year in a business case. So how do you motivate, look at your team, the processes to get them to be able to accomplish things for your organization, for themselves, or for you. One of the things, whether you're a business person, a military, or even someone watching the news, cognitive bias, right? Cognitive bias, the systematic pattern where, um, where you're looking at how it creates your own subjective reality because you're preventing specific input that you can understand that maybe even be counter to what you already believe. You can use an example on the battlefield, the beginning of Gettysburg as an example. The general thinks he's fighting the militia because they're kind of fighting in one thing, but he discounts the pieces of information that would confirm for him it's someone else. And that leads to a whole host of problems. So, asking leaders, how do you prevent cognitive bias for yourself, your organization? Do you have somebody that is, your whisperer that can tell you things that you don't like, that may be counter to the way you think? That can provide a whole host or depth to understanding that will position your business, uh, you know, uh, in a better position. You know, you could then use Kodak. We refuse to identify that digital and the ability to keep them and print them off at any point in time, etc., leads to them discounting and even the ability to buy the digital tools at the very beginning. And now where are they? Right, we can use that as an example from a battlefield to a business example using just one theme of cognitive bias. A leader's vision of where the organization needs to go, but what about your ability to visualize where you are, what processes, how do you receive information, how do you transmit information? That's different between someone who's maybe at the operational or strategic levels of an organization versus how they might visualize or their vision for what has to happen at the tactical level, the very unique, specific events overall. And there you can use the differences between how does one leader in the military, let's talk Eisenhower to Dick Winters, if you've ever watched the Band of Brothers, he's the real protagonist in there. How do they see the difference? But there are bits that you can see the connective tissue between them. No one likes to sit in a hotel conference room and listen to someone drone on over a PowerPoint slide. Getting out there and having an emotional attachment connection to what you're learning will actually embed it in your organization and in the people. And then what's different about what I do is I'm going to come back 60 to 90 days later and I'm going to give you the unvarnished, is your organization succeeding? Are you getting the return on the investment? Are they identifying things that need, new processes that should go in? What are the impediments to imparting change in your organization? Do they have the right authorities to be able to make decisions before you have to? And give the unvarnished truth without naming names to the leader to be able to say, this the investment you gave, they are providing you this rich feedback that you can take to make your organization better. That's my why. That's my end hook to the beginning, right? If you invest in your people, they're going to return that investment back to you that will make your organization better than it was than when you spent the money to have me come in and do something or to travel to someplace really cool. Gettysburg, Normandy, the Battle of the Bulge, the west coast of Italy, the Salerno Anzio area, um, the Netherlands, wherever it may be. So the way I feel about entrepreneurship is, and those who are not entrepreneurial, right? Some people want to be told what to do. Some people want to, put out on their own path. But finding the right blend of those people inside of your organization when you're going from sole proprietor to small team to scaling that team, scaling your business. When you get to now you're getting multi-million-dollar investments, and potentially a Fortune 500 company or a prime in your thing says, this is the business we want to either partner with or we want to buy. How do you get there? Right? It's finding that right blend of people, finding the way to make people feel involved. How do you reward them? How do you, do you have the processes? Do you make them feel empowered? These are all things that a good entrepreneur may have the bits and pieces, but they may not have the time to do it. And so sometimes you need a little help, and that's what I'm there for. Examples of the types of clients that I've had universities, I've had military organizations, and so bringing these organizations, in particular future leaders, so from the universities in the United States, Army ROTC as an example, or in just 2 weeks, I'm taking the Air Force ROTC to Gettysburg, and we will talk about these various different aspects of leadership, how they can take these events from the past, look through the lens of today, and impart framework thinking for the challenges that they are going to have in the future. 8 stops. We'll start with cognitive bias at one of the places and get through everything that leads up to General Lee's decision to march 13,000 soldiers across an open field for 1 mile and thinking that that is the right idea. What I am doing on LinkedIn, as an example, is the beginning of my book. I'm using little examples of battles, thoughts, conferences that I go to spark questions about what do we know about this event? How does that impact? What are the leadership principles that we can learn from this? Do we have those same challenges or similar challenges in our lives today, whether it's a business or a military context? And in the future, we're going to wrap those up into chapters that may have 2 or 3 different, like a Civil War, a World War II, and maybe a more recent, paired with my own personal experiences as a military leader, and then asking questions of what does that mean for businesses? especially in the world that is driven by AI, where all the answers seem to be at the tip of your fingers. Where am I? Where is the business in 5 years? It's a blend of education, right? Working with education, like, from high school students to college students, MBA programs, right? Leadership isn't really well taught, even in colleges. Even in a business setting, they're really teaching more of project management, a project management approach. Leadership is something different, and they may not have those in there. I want to have repeat clientele that say, this is the best return on my investment. It may seem like, you're putting out there up front, but what I got back from the people and my emotional attachment to this really great experience is the way people want to talk about my business. So in 5 years, I want people to be saying, I've had these PowerPoint briefing discussions in things, and I don't think that that's right for my company. Someone who's starting a company, someone who's wanting to go to that next level, who should I be reaching out to? People like you, people like me. I taught at the U.S. Army War College, where you had to look at the variety of people that you had in your class, from international to civilians to various different military services, and they all speak very different languages. So you have to find a way to get everybody to see what it is, the theme that you're trying to provide them as a way of thinking. Because what got them there is not what's going to make them successful in their next job as they move up into the enterprise level of leadership. Being a doer is not the same as leading an enterprise. If you really want to know more about barrel strength leadership and what I can provide, you can go to my website at www.barrelstrengthleadership.org, or follow me on LinkedIn, Chris Hossfeld, or Barrel Strength Leadership on LinkedIn, where I will tell the stories and which will eventually come together in the form of a book.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Imagine a space where triumphs, trials, and tales of entrepreneurship come alive. Welcome to the 21st Century Entrepreneurship Podcast, a gold awarded journey hosted by Martin Piskarik, connecting with listeners in 95 countries and ranking in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Join our exclusive community, elevate your perspective, and embark on the path to success.